Imagine a country lane, deep in the heart of old Wales. The modern world is a distant rumour here, a story told in another language. It is a night without a moon, and the trees, ancient and gnarled, lean over the path. Their branches knit together to form a ceiling of impenetrable black. The air is heavy, thick with the scent of damp earth and the slow, sweet perfume of decay. To be here, alone, is to feel the weight of centuries pressing in on you. It is to feel that the silence is not empty, but watchful. Welcome, fellow historians of the strange and the unseen, to the Candlelight Historian. Here we extinguish the bright, harsh lights of the modern age and allow our eyes to adjust to the gloom, to better see the stories that flicker in the shadows of the past. Tonight, we travel to the mist-shrouded hills and valleys of Wales, a land rich with a folklore so potent it feels less like superstition and more like a law of nature. We are here to listen for the phantom march of a ghostly procession and to watch for a single, lonely flame that charts the final journey from life into death. These are the Welsh death omens, the Goblin Funeral, and the corpse candle. Our journey begins not with a sight, but with a sound. In the oppressive quiet of that lonely lane, it starts as a faint, rhythmic disturbance. It is the slow, measured tread of many feet, marching in perfect unison. The sound grows steadily, the sound of a large company approaching, yet the lane remains utterly empty. Then, another sound threads through the tramping feet, a low, mournful music. It is the unmistakable melody of a funeral psalm, sung by a chorus of voices that have no bodies, no mouths from which to issue. The sound is solid, real, filling the narrow lane until the very air seems to vibrate with its sorrow. Yet, the eye sees nothing but the dark road and the menacing shapes of the hedgerows. The mind reels, caught in the chasm between what the ear insists is present and what the eye confirms is absent. This is the first terror of the Goblin Funeral. Driven by a dread that is stronger than reason, one who finds themselves in this predicament might remember the old instruction, the one passed down in hushed tones around the warmth of the hearth. You must stoop low, placing your eye near the level of the ground, and look along the path. And then, the second terror reveals itself. The moment you do this, the sound vanishes. The psalms, the tramping feet, all of it ceases in an instant. In its place, a silent procession materializes. It is a full funeral, perfectly rendered in shades of gray and shadow. Psalm singers march 2 by 2, their mouths open in the shape of song, but not a single note comes forth. 4 men carry a bier on their shoulders, their faces grim and set with concentration. Behind them, a trail of mourners follows. The men have black hatbands streaming in an unfelt wind, and the women dab at unseen tears with ghostly handkerchiefs. The entire procession glides past in absolute profound silence. It is a perfect moving image of a communal ritual of grief, but it is a silent film projected onto the very fabric of the night. The horror lies not just in the sight of ghosts, but in this fundamental violation of the senses, the sound without the image, followed by the image without the sound. It is a glimpse into a reality where the laws of nature are suspended, a spectral rehearsal for a death that is already written into the landscape. This phantom march is known throughout Wales as the Teulu, or sometimes the Teulu, the Goblin Funeral. It is not a mere warning of death, not some vague premonition of loss. It is something far more specific and far more terrible. It is a spectral duplicate of an actual funeral that is yet to occur. The omen foretells not just the death, but the entire social ceremony that will follow it. It reveals the exact route the procession will take, the very people who will attend, and sometimes even the words they will speak. It is a direct preview of a fixed and unalterable future. The accounts of those who have witnessed it are marked by this chilling precision. Consider the story of Rhys Thomas, a carpenter from Carmarthenshire. He was walking by night when he heard the telltale sounds of the Teulu. As the unseen procession drew level with him, he felt an invisible hand touch his shoulder, and a spectral voice ask, in Welsh, "My dear Rhys, how are you?" A month passed. A real funeral for a neighbor who had died passed along that very road. As the mourners walked by, a woman in the procession saw Rhys standing by the roadside. She placed her hand on his shoulder and spoke the exact same words in the exact same tone he had heard from the phantom a month before. The ghostly event was a perfect echo, cast forward in time. The Teulu is not a warning that can be acted upon. It is a statement of an immutable fact. Its witnesses are not given a chance to avert tragedy, but are instead made privy to the grim certainty of fate. The most dreadful illustration of this is the story of an old man who lived near Llanluch Church. One evening, he saw the Teulu pass by his home. Peering over a stone wall, he recognized all the mourners as his neighbors. But there was one man he did not know, a solitary, sorrowful figure who stood apart from the rest. When the real funeral took place soon after, the old man went to the churchyard to watch. His curiosity piqued. The procession arrived, identical to his vision in every single detail. He saw all his neighbors, just as they had appeared in the Omen. But the stranger was not among them. Puzzled, he looked around, and then a cold dread seized him. He realized that he himself was standing on the very spot where the phantom stranger had stood. He was the stranger. The Omen had not merely foretold a death. It had foretold his own attendance at the funeral, sealing his fate as a witness to the coming grief. At times, this spectral procession seems to possess a strange, semi-physical reality. The Reverend Howell Prosser, a curate of Aberystwyth, once encountered the Teulu in the church lane late at night. Mistaking it for a real burial that was perhaps in some distress, he laid his hand on the phantom bier to help carry the corpse. In that instant, the entire procession vanished, leaving him alone in the dark with the heavy, brittle skull of a dead horse in his hand. Another man, Isaac William Thomas, was bold enough to reach out as the phantom bier passed him and snatch the black veil that covered it. He carried the unearthly fabric home, where it was seen by many. It was described as being of an exceedingly fine material, so light and ethereal that when folded, it occupied almost no space at all. These accounts suggest a belief system where the future is not some abstract concept, but a tangible, physical reality that already exists in a spectral dimension, a world whose artifacts can, on rare and terrifying occasions, be stolen and brought back into our own. If the Goblin Funeral is the communal rehearsal of death, then the Canwyll Corph, or corpse candle, is its solitary, elemental herald. It is a ghostly light, a single flame that traces the inevitable path from the deathbed to the grave. Like the Teulu, it is governed by a strict and detailed folklore. Its size foretells the age of the person whose death is imminent. A large, strong flame signifies a full-grown adult. A smaller one, a child, and a tiny, faint flicker, an infant. Its color often reveals the gender. A powerful red flame is said to be for a man, while a paler white or bluish light signifies a woman. Should two candles be seen traveling together, one large and one small, it is understood that a mother and her child will soon die. The journey of the corpse candle is a solemn pilgrimage. It floats low to the ground, unsupported, moving with a steady, inexorable purpose. It follows the exact route the funeral procession will later take, no matter how winding or difficult that path may be. It is seen to pause at the very spots where the coffin bearers will later rest. it will wait patiently at stiles or gates before passing through them. Its journey finally ends at the churchyard, where it hovers for a moment over a particular patch of earth before sinking into the ground, marking the precise location of the future grave. Encounters with this omen are deeply embedded in the Welsh consciousness. A woman from Caerau, a village just outside Cardiff, told a chilling story of sitting with her dying sister. As she kept her vigil, she looked up and saw the ghost of old John Richards, a neighbor who had been dead for 10 years, standing in the room holding a corpse candle in his hand. The very next day, her sister died. The same woman, some years later, was watching at the bedside of her dying mother-in-law. She saw a faint candle flame appear at the foot of the bed. In a stupor of dread and morbid curiosity, she reached out to touch it. As her fingers made contact, the flame dissolved into a shower of pale sparks and vanished completely. At that exact moment, her mother-in-law breathed her last. The most terrifying and primal form of the omen is when the light is seen to be the very soul made visible. In some accounts, as a person lies on their deathbed, a small light is seen to issue from their mouth or nostrils. This flame, the Canwyll Corph, travels a short distance around the room, as if testing its new freedom, and then returns to the body, re-entering or blending with the flesh just before the final moment of death. This is the ancient, worldwide belief of the soul departing with the final breath, but rendered here in the terrifyingly literal form of elemental fire. The soul is not an abstract concept, it is a tangible energy, a light that can be seen on its final earthly journey. And this light is not a passive vision. It possesses agency and a strange power. To interfere with its fated path is to invite disaster. A blacksmith of Llanboidy, emboldened by drink, once tried to block the passage of a corpse candle as it came down his road. As it drew near, he saw that it was held by the spectral corpse of a woman he knew, who grinned at him dreadfully from the flames. He was instantly struck from his horse and lay senseless for hours. In another tale, a clergyman's son, in a fit of youthful bravado, tampered with a footbridge to see how a passing candle would cross the stream. When the light reached the broken bridge, it hesitated. The young man, now unnerved, quickly replaced the boards. As the light passed him, it struck him with the force of a phantom handkerchief. The blow, though seemingly light as air, knocked him unconscious, and he lay on the cold ground until morning. The corpse candle demands respect, for it is not merely a light, it is the physical manifestation of a soul fulfilling its final, terrestrial destiny. While these omens feel uniquely Welsh, they are part of a vast family of European death lore. Yet when placed beside their kin, their distinct character becomes even clearer. The Canwyll Corph is a world away from the mischievous English will-o'-the-wisp, known in Wales as the Elilden. The will-o'-the-wisp is a trickster, a chaotic and often malevolent spirit of the marsh that leads travelers to their doom for sport. The corpse candle, by contrast, is a solemn and dignified messenger. It does not lure or deceive, it simply states a fact. Its purpose is not mischief, but prophecy. Similarly, the Goblin Funeral stands in sharp contrast to the great mythological processions of Germanic and Norse tradition. The Wild Hunt is a storm of souls, a terrifying celestial army led by a god like Odin or a legendary king, thundering through the night sky with a cacophony of horns and hounds. In Brittany, the Ankou is the personification of death itself, a skeletal figure driving a cart to collect the souls of the dead. The Welsh Teulu, however, is not a mythological spectacle. It is a quiet, orderly, and deeply personal affair. It is a mirror image of a human ritual, foretelling the death not of a great hero, but of a local farmer or a neighbor's child. Even the Welsh equivalent of the banshee has its own terrible signature. The Irish banshee is a wailing woman, a spirit attached to specific ancient families, whose cry is often one of sorrow and lament for a departing kinsman. The Welsh have two such spirits. The first is the Caerhireth, an invisible groaning spirit whose dreadful disembodied moan drifts over land and sea. The second is the Grach y Rhibyn, the hag of the dribble. The Grach is no sorrowful fairy woman. She is a monstrous, hideous hag with leathern wings, tangled hair, and long black teeth. Her cry is a blood-curdling shriek that blasts the senses of those who hear it. What emerges from these comparisons is the intensely local and personal nature of Welsh death lore. The great myths of Europe often deal with cosmic struggles and divine figures, but the Welsh omens bring the supernatural right into the heart of the parish. Their horror is not born of a distant mythological evil, but from the intrusion of absolute, fated power into the deeply mundane and familiar world of the village. The terror is not that Odin is riding through the sky, but that the funeral of your neighbor, who is at this very moment alive and well, has just passed silently by your own front gate. This grounding in the everyday reality of the community is the unique and chilling signature of Welsh folk horror. But why did these beliefs hold such power? In the isolated pre-industrial communities of rural Wales, where life was governed by the seasons and the church bell, these omens served a profound psychological purpose. They did not make death less sorrowful, but they stripped it of its terrifying randomness. Death was no longer a sudden, chaotic interruption of life, but an announced, preordained event. The Teulu and the Canwyll Corph provided a narrative framework, a ritualized foreknowledge that allowed the community to prepare, both practically and emotionally, for loss. The omen was a confirmation that a person's fate was set, part of a larger, unseen order that governed all things. This deeply fatalistic worldview, likely a remnant of pre-Christian belief, was masterfully integrated into the Christian faith through the legend of Wales's own patron saint, Dewi Sant, or Saint David. Tradition holds that Saint David, observing that his people were growing careless of their souls and the life to come, prayed to God for a sign that would constantly remind them of their mortality. In answer to his prayer, the corpse candle and the other death portents were granted to the people of his bishopric. This origin story is a remarkable piece of religious syncretism. It transforms what were once the arbitrary and frightening actions of pagan spirits into a divine gift, a terrible grace bestowed by God through a beloved saint. The omens were no longer just omens. They were a tool for salvation, a constant call to piety. This allowed the ancient, deeply ingrained folk beliefs to survive and flourish within a devoutly Christian society, not as a contradiction to faith, but as a confirmation of it. Ultimately, the corpse candle and the goblin funeral were far more than simple superstitions. They were pillars of a worldview that saw the veil between the living and the dead as thin and porous. A world where fate was not a matter of chance, but of grim, solemn certainty. These shared beliefs were also a powerful social adhesive. A witnessed omen became a communal event, discussed in hushed tones, its fulfillment watched for and confirmed by all. In a world without the binding forces of modern communication, this shared supernatural landscape provided a common language and a common set of truths that bound the community together in the face of life's greatest mystery. They were a culture's way of mapping the geography of death, of finding a predictable, if sorrowful, path through the mists of the unknown. Thank you for joining me in the candlelight once again. The stories of these omens remind us that for much of history, the world was a far more enchanted and perhaps more terrifying place. The line between what was seen and what was believed was blurred, and the future sometimes cast a long, dark shadow back into the present. If you wish to explore more of these forgotten corners of history and folklore, please consider subscribing to the Candlelight Historian and perhaps like this video to help others find their way here. And as always, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, stay curious and be mindful of the lights you see on a lonely road at night.